Did you know that the woman who sang the ghostly woo 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 on Blue Moon of Kentucky was Elvis himself using a falsetto? Or that the famous operatic high note on Surrender wasn't even sung by a regular member of his backing group? Ever wonder who was responsible for the soulful gospel-infused power behind his 1969 Memphis sessions? The story of Elvis Presley's music is often told as a solo act. But the truth is, his records are filled with incredible vocal performances from singers who rarely got the spotlight. These singers weren't just background noise. They were collaborators, they added texture, emotion, and sometimes they completely stole the show. Number 21, who were the women behind the King's biggest hit? The backing singers on Hound Dog were not the Jordanaires, and Elvis recorded the song on July 2nd, 1956 at RCA's New York studio, but his regular group was unavailable. The singers were actually three members of a vocal group called the Spear Family, who happened to be at the studio that day. They had never worked with Elvis before and would never work with him again on a studio recording. The entire session for Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel took 7 hours, with Elvis demanding 31 takes of Hound Dog to get it just right. The session for Hound Dog was a tense one. Elvis was determined to create a version that blew Big Mama Thornton's original out of the water. He also wanted to one-up the version by Freddie Bell and the Bell Boys, which he'd seen in Las Vegas. He worked the musicians and singers relentlessly. The story goes that he wanted a very specific sound. He knew what was in his head. He just needed to get it onto tape. The musicians, including legendary guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black, were getting tired. But Elvis was a force of nature. In the middle of this creative storm were the ad hoc backing vocalists. Their names were Gordon Stoker, who would soon become the manager of the Jordanaires, Ben Spear and Brock Spear. They were gospel singers, used to a very different style of music. Rock and roll was still new. It was raw and loud. They were tasked with providing the rhythmic hand claps and the simple but effective ooh-ah backing vocals that punctuate the track. Listen to the song closely. Their contribution seems simple, but it's essential. They provide a percussive element with their voices. They act as a counterpoint to Elvis's aggressive, snarling lead vocal. When Elvis sings, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog," their voices come in, almost like a Greek chorus, confirming the sentiment. They add weight and texture. Without them, the track would feel emptier, less powerful. What's fascinating is how quickly they had to adapt. They were professional singers, of course, but they were thrown into a high-pressure situation with a young, demanding artist who was on the verge of becoming the biggest star in the world. They had to learn their parts on the spot. They had to match Elvis's energy, and they had to do it take after take after take. The final version, take 28, is a masterclass in controlled chaos, and right in the middle of it are these three gospel singers clapping and singing, helping to create one of the most iconic rock and roll records of all time. Now, they weren't just backing him up, they were part of the song's engine. Their voices, though not individually distinct, form a crucial layer of the sound. They add a human choral element that contrasts with the electric grit of the band. It was a one-off collaboration, a moment of studio magic born out of necessity. They walked in to do one job and ended up on a record that sold over 10 million copies and changed the course of popular music. They didn't get a credit on the label, but their voices are etched into history. Number 20, how did a high school student end up on a classic Elvis record? The high, soaring female vocal on Let It Be Me from the 1970 album On Stage was sung by Millie Kirkham, but she wasn't part of his regular touring group, the Sweet Inspirations. Kirkham was a Nashville session singer who had worked with Elvis since the 1950s. She was brought in specifically for the Las Vegas engagement to add a different texture to his live sound. The voice you hear belongs to a woman who was overdubbed onto the live recording later in a Nashville studio. The soprano with Elvis on stage at the time was a young singer named Mary Holiday. Let's unpack the recording of the Unstage album. It was recorded in February 1970 at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. Elvis was at the peak of his live performance powers. He was backed by the TCB Band, an orchestra, and two vocal groups, the Imperials and the Sweet Inspirations. But producer Felton Jarvis felt something was missing from some of the recordings. He wanted to add another layer, a higher vocal register, to complement the soulful sound of the Sweet Inspirations. So he took the tapes back to Nashville. There he brought in Millie Kirkham. Kirkham was a legend in the Nashville studio scene. She was known as the Nashville soprano. Her ability to hit high, clear, almost ethereal notes made her a go-to singer for producers looking for that special touch. She had already sung on many of Elvis's biggest hits, including Blue Christmas and The Wonder of You, and on Let It Be Me, a cover of the Gilbert Bacall song. Her voice is not just background, it's a feature. Listen to the way she comes in during the verses. Elvis sings the main melody, and Kirkham's voice floats above his, singing a delicate, angelic counter melody. It's not a harmony in the traditional sense. It's almost like a separate, ghostly vocal line that weaves in and out of Elvis's. The moment that truly stands out is during the dramatic crescendo of the song. As Elvis builds the intensity, singing "Don't Take This Heaven from One," Kirkham's voice soars into the stratosphere. It's a pure, powerful note that adds a huge amount of emotional weight to the performance. It's the sound of heartbreak and desperation, a perfect complement to the raw emotion in Elvis's own voice. What makes this a stolen moment is how distinct and memorable her part is. You can't imagine the song without it. It's not just support, it's a crucial part of the song's emotional architecture. And the fact that it was added later in a studio hundreds of miles away from the original performance is a testament to the skill of both Kirkham and producer Felton Jarvis. They knew exactly what the song needed. They found the perfect voice to deliver it. Millie Kirkham's contribution to Let It Be Me shows how a single well-placed vocal line can transform a great performance into an unforgettable one. It's a moment of pure studio artistry. Number 19, could a single word make a song famous? The signature deep bump bump vocal on That's All Right was not sung by a bass singer. It was Elvis himself slapping the back of his acoustic guitar to create a percussive sound. The backing vocals on the track are minimal, consisting only of Scotty Moore and Bill Black providing some light vocal support. The most prominent backing vocal is an illusion. Let's go back to July 5th, 1954, Sun Studio, Memphis, Tennessee. A young Elvis Presley guitarist, Scotty Moore, and bassist Bill Black were in the studio. They were struggling. They had tried a bunch of ballads, but nothing was clicking. Sam Phillips, the owner of Sun Records, was about to send them home. The session felt like a failure. Then, during a break, Elvis started fooling around. He picked up his guitar and began singing an old blues song by Arthur Big Boy Crudup called That's All Right. But he didn't sing it like a slow, mournful blues. He sped it up. He sang it with energy, with a playful, almost frantic rhythm. The Bill Black joined in on his stand-up bass, and Scotty Moore added some guitar licks. Sam Phillips heard it from the control room. He stuck his head out the door and asked, "What are you doing?" They told him they were just messing around. Phillips said, "Well, find a place to start and do it again." That impromptu jam session became the recording. Now, about those backing vocals, there are no Jordanaires, no gospel quartet. It's just three guys in a room. If you listen carefully, you can hear Scotty and Bill shouting a few words here and there, adding to the loose, spontaneous feel. But the most memorable vocal hook, that deep bump bump sound that mimics a bass drum, is often mistaken for a bass singer. In reality, it's a combination of things. It's the slap of Bill Black's bass. It's the echo and reverb of the small studio, expertly captured by Sam Phillips. And it's Elvis himself. He used his whole body when he performed, even in the studio. He would slap his guitar, stomp his feet. That percussive energy is part of the vocal track. The sound is so integrated into the rhythm that it becomes a vocal hook. This is a case where the backing vocal that steals the show is the spirit of the performance itself. It's the sound of youthful energy and spontaneity. It's the sound of a new kind of music being born. There's no carefully arranged harmony. There's no polished choir. There's just the raw, unfiltered sound of three musicians discovering something new. The most important backing vocal on Elvis's first record wasn't sung by a person. It was the sound of the room, the energy of the moment, and the percussive attack of the musicians themselves. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful vocal moments are the ones that aren't planned at all. Number 18, what was so funny about Are You Lonesome Tonight? The famous Lawing version of Are You Lonesome Tonight was recorded live on stage at the International Hotel in Las Vegas on August 26, 1969. The cause of Elvis's laughter was a backing singer, Cissy Houston, who sang the wrong line during the spoken word bridge. Instead of singing her harmony part, she sang the lead melody, which took Elvis by surprise. The song Are You Lonesome Tonight was a staple of Elvis's live shows. It was usually a serious, dramatic moment in the concert. The song features a spoken word bridge where Elvis recites a monologue. It's meant to be heartfelt and a little theatrical. During this part, the backing vocalist would provide a gentle, atmospheric harmony. On this particular night, something went wrong. Or, depending on your point of view, something went wonderfully right. As Elvis began the spoken part, I wonder if you're lonesome tonight. He was in his usual serious mode. The audience was quiet, hanging on his every word. The backing vocalists were supposed to come in with their soft oohs and ahs. But Cissy Houston, a powerhouse vocalist and the leader of the Sweet Inspirations, had a momentary lapse. Instead of her harmony, she sang the melody line along with him, loud and clear. It was completely unexpected. You can hear the surprise in Elvis's voice. He tries to continue, but he starts to chuckle. Then, as he continues the monologue, he sees a bald man in the front row take off his toupee and start polishing his head with it. The combination of Cissy's vocal mistake and this visual gag was too much for him. He completely loses his composure. He starts laughing uncontrollably. He tries to get the words out, but he can barely speak. He turns a line into, "Do you gaze at your bald head and wish you had hair?" The audience roars with laughter. The backing singers are trying to hold it together. You can hear them trying to sing their parts, but they are laughing too. Cissy Houston's voice, in particular, is an incredible force, even when she's trying to stifle a laugh. She keeps singing, her voice full of warmth and humor. Her initial mistake becomes the catalyst for one of the most famous and beloved moments in Elvis's live career. This recording was never intended for a release. It was a bootleg for years, but it was so popular with fans that RCA eventually released it officially in 1980. It became a top 30 hit in the UK. Cissy Houston's mistake didn't ruin the song, it transformed it. It turned a serious ballad into a moment of pure, unscripted joy. It showed a side of Elvis that fans didn't always get to see, the playful human side. And it highlights the incredible talent of Cissy Houston. Even when she sang the wrong part, she sang it with such power and soul that it became the star of the show. Her voice is the reason Elvis broke character. In that moment, she wasn't a backing singer, she was his comedic partner. Number 17, who sang that haunting soprano on In the Ghetto? The subtle but crucial soprano harmony on In the Ghetto was provided by two singers, Mary Holiday and Donna Thatcher. They were part of the group of Memphis session singers brought in by producer Chips Moman for the legendary 1969 American Sound Studio sessions. Their voices were overdubbed after Elvis had recorded his main vocal. The recording of In the Ghetto was a pivotal moment for Elvis. It was a socially conscious song, a narrative about poverty and the cycle of violence. This was a departure from his usual material. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, was against him recording it. He thought it was too political, too controversial. But Elvis believed in the song. The session took place in January 1969. Elvis, working with producer Chips Moman and the house band known as the Memphis Boys, was on fire creatively. He laid down the lead vocal with a passion and sincerity that was undeniable. The raw track was powerful on its own. But Moman knew it needed something more to elevate it. He wanted to add a layer of sensitivity, a touch of hope and sadness that would complement the stark reality of the lyrics. He decided to use female backing vocals, but not in the typical gospel or pop style. He wanted something more classical, almost like a choir. He brought in Mary Holiday and Donna Thatcher. They were not well-known names, but they were seasoned professionals who could deliver exactly what a producer needed. Their task was to add a high, floating vocal line that would act as a counterpoint to Elvis's earthy narrative vocal. Listen to the track, especially during the chorus. As Elvis sings and his mama cries, their voices enter. It's not a loud, overpowering harmony. It's a gentle, almost ethereal sound. Their soprano lines are long and sustained. They create an atmosphere of sorrow. It's like the sound of weeping angels hovering over the scene. The most effective use of their voices comes at the end of the song. As the story of the young man's life comes to its tragic conclusion and a new baby is born in the ghetto, their voices swell. They sing a wordless melody that is incredibly moving. It's a sound that conveys both the tragedy of the situation and the faintest glimmer of hope for the future. It's a complex emotional message delivered with just a few simple, pure notes. Without those voices, In the Ghetto would still be a great song. But it wouldn't have the same emotional depth. The soprano parts add a cinematic quality to the recording. They lift it from a simple story song into something more profound. Mary Holiday and Donna Thatcher didn't just sing backup. They provided the song's conscience. Their voices are the sound of the world watching and mourning, and in doing so, they steal the emotional heart of the record. Number 16, What Made Suspicious Minds Feel Like a Live Concert. The powerful, gospel-infused female backing vocals on Suspicious Minds were arranged and led by Jeannie Green, a respected Memphis session singer. The other singers were Mary Holiday, Mary Green, Donna Thatcher, and Ginger Holiday. Their relentless call and response with Elvis in the song's extended outro is what gives the track its epic concert anthem feel. The famous fade out and fade in was an idea from producer Chips Moman, designed to mimic the energy of a live performance on a studio record. Suspicious Minds was recorded in the early hours of January 23rd, 1969 at American Sound Studio. It was one of the last songs recorded during those legendary sessions. The song, written by Mark James, had a complex arrangement. Elvis and the band nailed the basic track, but everyone knew the song's success would depend on the power of the ending. Chips Moman wanted to create something that would build and build, refusing to let the listener go. He envisioned a powerful vocal battle between Elvis and a group of female singers. He turned to Jeannie Green to help him create it. Green was not just a singer, she was a talented vocal arranger. Well, she took Moman's idea and crafted the intricate, soulful parts that would become the song's signature. The magic happens in the last 2 minutes of the song. After a false fade out, the track comes roaring back. This is where the backing vocalists take over. They don't just sing harmonies, they engage in a direct call and response with Elvis. He sings a line, and they answer with a powerful, almost defiant vocal phrase. Listen to the interplay. Elvis sings, "Oh, let our love survive." They answer with a soaring or dry the tears from your eyes. It's a conversation, it's an argument, it's the sound of two sides of a relationship pleading their case. Their vocals are not sweet or gentle. They are strong, passionate, and full of soul. They match Elvis's intensity note for note. As the song continues, their parts become more and more prominent. They chant "With Suspicious Minds" over and over, their voices layering on top of each other, creating a wall of sound. It's a vocal crescendo that keeps building, pushing the song to its emotional peak. This is what gives the song its live feel. It sounds like a jam session, an improvisation, even though it was carefully arranged. The contribution of Jeannie Green and the other singers cannot be overstated. They turned Suspicious Minds from a great pop song into an epic. They provided the emotional fuel for the song's explosive ending. Their voices are as much a part of the song's identity as Elvis's lead vocal or the famous horn riff. They weren't just in the background, they were on the front line, going toe-to-toe with the king and creating one of the most exciting moments in his entire recorded catalog. Number 15 was that really a woman singing on Crying in the Chapel. The high floating harmony vocal on Crying in the Chapel was sung by Gordon Stoker of the Jordanaires. He used his falsetto voice to create a sound that many listeners mistook for a female soprano. The Jordanaires recorded their parts in a separate session on October 31st, 1960, 6 months after Elvis had recorded his lead vocal. And Elvis originally recorded Crying in the Chapel during the sessions for his gospel album, His Hand in Mine. The song was a last-minute addition recorded after the main session had ended. It was just Elvis and a few musicians, including guitarist Scotty Moore and pianist Floyd Kramer. The performance was intimate and heartfelt. However, when RCA listened back to the tapes, they felt the song needed something more. It was a beautiful vocal from Elvis, but it lacked the choral, spiritual quality they were looking for. The decision was made to add backing vocals. The Jordanaires, Elvis's longtime vocal group, were the obvious choice. The Jordanaires were masters of their craft. They could create complex, beautiful harmonies that blended perfectly with Elvis's voice. For Crying in the Chapel, they came up with an arrangement that was both simple and incredibly effective. The bass voice of Ray Walker provided a solid foundation. The baritone and tenor parts filled out the middle. But the secret weapon was Gordon Stoker. Stoker had a remarkable vocal range. He could sing his normal tenor part, but he could also switch to a pure, clear falsetto that sounded almost exactly like a female soprano. On Crying in the Chapel, he uses this technique to stunning effect. Listen to the song from the very beginning. His high, wordless ooh is the first voice you hear after the organ intro. It sets a reverent, peaceful tone. Throughout the song, his falsetto line weaves around Elvis's lead vocal. It's a delicate, angelic sound that adds a layer of spiritual beauty to the recording. The moment where he truly shines is in the chorus. As Elvis sings, "You'll search, and you'll search, but you'll never find," Stoker's voice soars above everyone else. It's a sound of pure devotion. It's what gives the record its Chappelle feel. For years, many fans and listeners assumed that a female singer had been brought in for the session. The sound was so convincing, but it was just the incredible vocal talent of Gordon Stoker. His performance is a masterclass in subtlety. He never overpowers Elvis. Instead, he supports and enhances him. He provides the halo of sound that makes the record so special. It's a stolen moment because his single vocal line defines the entire atmosphere of the song, creating an illusion that was more powerful than reality. Number 14, who provided the operatic power on It's Now or Never. The operatic ending of It's Now or Never, with its powerful high note, was a collaboration. The main harmony was sung by the Jordanaires, but the very highest note was sung by Ray Walker, the group's bass singer, using his incredible upper range. Many people mistakenly believe a special guest opera singer was brought in for the session. It's Now or Never was recorded on April 3rd, 1960. It was one of the first songs Elvis recorded after returning from his army service in Germany. While stationed there, he had become a fan of the American tenor Mario Lanza, who had a hit with a song called There's No Tomorrow, which was based on the Italian classic O Sole Mio. Elvis loved the song and wanted to record a new version. He brought the idea to his music publishers, who commissioned a new set of English lyrics. The result was It's Now or Never. When Elvis went into the studio to record it, he knew he wanted it to be big and dramatic. He wanted to pay tribute to Lanza's operatic style. The Jordanaires were faced with a challenge. How could a 4-part harmony group replicate the power of an opera singer? They worked out a complex arrangement. Gordon Stoker, Neil Matthews, and Hoyt Hawkins handled the main harmonies. But the song needed a huge climactic ending. Elvis himself couldn't quite hit the final high G note with the power he wanted. This is where Ray Walker stepped in. Walker was the bass singer for the group. He was known for his rich, low notes that anchored the Jordanaires' sound. But he had a secret weapon, a huge vocal range. He could sing notes that were far above the normal bass or even tenor range. At the very end of the song, as Elvis holds the final note, the Jordanaires build a powerful chord behind him. Then, for the last few seconds, Ray Walker's voice shoots up and hits that final soaring high note. It's a pure, powerful, almost operatic sound. It provides the exclamation point that the song needs. It's a stunning piece of vocal acrobatics, a bass singer hitting a note that would challenge a tenor. It's a testament to the versatility and sheer talent of the Jordanaires. They weren't just a doo-wop group. They were highly skilled musicians who could adapt to any style, from rock and roll to gospel to opera. Ray Walker's high note on It's Now or Never is one of the great stolen moments in Elvis's catalog. It's a single, breathtaking note that elevates the entire performance. It took a great pop song and gave it the grand classical finale it deserved. And it was delivered by the last person you'd expect, the bass man. Number 13, what was the secret ingredient in Elvis's gospel music? The electrifying call and response vocals on many of Elvis's live gospel performances in the 1970s were led by J.D. Sumner, the leader of the Stamps Quartet. Sumner was famous for his incredibly deep bass voice, which was once listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the lowest human voice ever recorded. His ad-libs and interactions with Elvis became a highlight of the live shows. When Elvis returned to live performing in 1969, he wanted a sound that was bigger and more powerful than ever before. For his male backing vocals, he first used the Imperials. But in 1971, he hired J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet. It was a reunion of sorts. Sumner had been a hero of Elvis's when he was a teenager growing up in Memphis. Elvis used to sneak into gospel concerts to hear Sumner sing. J.D. Sumner was more than just a bass singer. He was a showman. He had a larger-than-life personality and a commanding stage presence. He and Elvis quickly developed a close friendship and a unique on-stage chemistry. This chemistry is most evident in their performances of gospel songs like Why Me Lord and How Great Thou Art. These weren't just faithful renditions of hymns. They were powerful, emotional, and often spontaneous performances. Elvis would, sing a line, and JD would respond with his impossibly low bass. A perfect example is their live version of Why Me Lord. During the song, Elvis often turns the microphone over to JD for the spoken word recitation. Sumner's deep, resonant voice would fill the auditorium. Then, during the choruses, Elvis and JD would trade lines. Elvis would sing, "Tell me, Lord, what did I ever do?" And JD would answer with a rumbling "Tell me, Lord," that sounded like it was coming from the center of the earth. Sometimes these interactions were planned. Other times they were completely spontaneous. Elvis would ad-lib a line and JD would respond in kind. They would joke with each other, challenge each other, and push each other to greater heights. You can hear the joy and mutual respect in their voices. J.D. Sumner's role went far beyond singing the low notes. He was a vocal anchor, an emotional sounding board, and a spiritual partner for Elvis on stage. His deep voice provided a powerful contrast to Elvis's high tenor. It was the voice of authority, of wisdom, of the earth itself. When J.D. Sumner and the Stamps sang with Elvis, they weren't just a backing group. They were a fundamental part of the show. Sumner's incredible voice and his dynamic interplay with Elvis created some of the most moving and memorable moments of his 1970s concerts. He didn't just support Elvis, he grounded him, and in doing so, he often stole the show right from under him. Number 12, who sang the ethereal? Ooh, in I Got Stung. The high insect-like ooh that punctuates the chorus of I Got Stung was sung by Gordon Stoker of the Jordanaires. The sound was not created with any studio effects. It was simply Stoker using his versatile falsetto voice in a creative and unusual way. The idea for the sound came up spontaneously during the recording session on June 11th, 1958. I Got Stung is a fun, up-tempo rock and roll number. It has a driving beat and a playful lyric about being stung by love. The band is tight, and Elvis is in fine form, delivering a confident, energetic vocal. But the thing that everyone remembers about the song is that weird, high-pitched vocal hook. The session took place at RCA's Studio B in Nashville. As they were working on the arrangement, someone suggested that the song needed a sound that mimicked a bee or a bug to go along with the stung lyric. They experimented with different instruments, but nothing sounded quite right. Then Gordon Stoker had an idea. He told the producer, Chet Atkins, that he could make the sound with his voice. Atkins was skeptical, but he let him try. Stoker went up to the microphone and, using his falsetto, produced a high, buzzing ooh that was both musical and slightly comical. It was perfect. Listen to the song and focus on that sound. It comes in right after Elvis sings the title line, "I Got Stung." Stoker's vocal is not just a single note. It has a slight vibrato and a little slide to it, which makes it sound even more like a buzzing insect. It's a brilliant piece of vocal sound design. What makes this moment so special is its simplicity and creativity. In an era before synthesizers and complex studio effects, musicians and singers had to come up with clever ways to create unique sounds. This is a perfect example. A human voice was used to create a sound effect that became the song's most memorable feature. The Jordanaires were known for their smooth, blended harmonies, but they were also incredibly creative and versatile. They could be a gospel choir 1 minute and a group of buzzing bees the next. Gordon Stoker's performance on "I Got Stung" is a testament to this. It's a small detail, just a few seconds of sound on a 2-minute record, but it's a moment of pure, unadulterated fun. It's a reminder that sometimes the most effective musical ideas are the simplest and most playful ones. It's a vocal hook that's impossible to forget, and it completely steals the show every time it appears. Number 11. Could a backing vocalist outshine the king on his own song? On the 1970 live version of "The Wonder of You," soprano Millie Kirkham sings a high descant that arguably becomes the most powerful and emotional voice on the record. Well, her part was overdubbed in a Nashville studio after the initial live recording, but it is so prominent and powerful that it competes with Elvis's lead vocal for the listener's attention. "The Wonder of You" became one of Elvis's signature songs of the 1970s. The version that became a hit single was recorded live at the International Hotel in Las Vegas in February 1970. The performance is classic Elvis, passionate, dramatic, and full of heart. He's backed by the TCB Band, an orchestra, the Imperials, and the Sweet Inspirations. It's a huge, lush sound, but when producer Felton Jarvis took the tapes back to Nashville, he felt it needed one more element. He wanted to add a touch of heavenly sound to the track, something to lift the emotional peak even higher. He called in Millie Kirkham. Kirkham's instructions were simple: listen to the track and add a high soprano part that complements Elvis's vocal. What she delivered was extraordinary. Her part is not a simple harmony. It's a descant, a separate melody line that soars above the main tune. The key moment comes in the song's final third. As Elvis builds towards the climax, singing "You'll Never Know How Much I Love You," Kirkham's voice enters, seemingly from nowhere. She holds a long, high, powerful note that hangs in the air. It's a breathtaking moment. Then, as Elvis sings the final lines, she begins to sing a counter melody. Her voice weaves in and out of his, creating a beautiful and complex vocal tapestry. Her performance is so powerful and so emotionally charged that for a few moments, you almost forget to listen to Elvis. She isn't just supporting him, she is duetting with him. Her voice is the sound of pure adoration, a perfect musical interpretation of the song's lyrics. The decision to mix her vocal so high in the final track was a bold one. It pushes her from the background right into the spotlight. It's a testament to the power of her performance that the producer felt it deserved to be heard so clearly. Millie Kirkham's vocal on "The Wonder of You" is a perfect example of how a backing singer can do more than just provide harmony. She can add a new dimension to a song, a new layer of emotion. Her performance is so stunning that it becomes an essential part of the record's identity. It's a case where the backing vocalist truly shares the lead, creating a duet that is far more powerful than a solo performance ever could have been. Number 10, who was the voice of a generation's heartbreak. The soulful ad-libs and powerful responses on Don't Cry Daddy, particularly in the final chorus, were sung by the female vocalists from the American Sound Studio sessions, including Jeannie Green and Mary Holiday. Their emotional performance turns the song from a sad story into a gut-wrenching piece of gospel-tinged drama. Don't Cry Daddy was recorded in January 1969 during the same fertile period that produced Suspicious Minds and In the Ghetto. The song, written by Mac Davis, is a poignant story told from the perspective of a child trying to comfort his grieving father after the mother has left or passed away. It's an emotionally heavy song, and Elvis's performance is tender and restrained. Producer Chips Moman knew that to make the song work, the production had to match the emotional weight of the lyrics without becoming overly sentimental. The key was the arrangement of the backing vocals. For most of the song, the female voices are subtle. They provide a soft, supportive pad of harmony behind Elvis, but as the song reaches its climax, they step forward. In the final chorus, as Elvis sings the title line with increasing desperation, the backing singers respond with powerful, soulful ad-libs. Listen to the final minute of the song. You can hear them singing lines like, "Don't you cry, it'll be all right," and "Daddy, please." They are not just singing notes. They are acting. They are playing the part of compassionate observers, maybe even angels, trying to offer comfort. Their voices are full of gospel fervor and deep soul. The interplay between Elvis's lead and their responses creates a powerful sense of drama. It feels like a real emotional conversation is taking place. Jeannie Green's voice is particularly prominent, her raw, soulful tone cutting through the mix. This performance elevates the song beyond a simple country tearjerker. The addition of these gospel and soul elements gives it a depth and a gravitas it would not otherwise have. The backing singers are not just a choir, they are characters in the story. They represent the voice of hope and resilience in the face of loss. Their contribution is a perfect example of the magic of the American Sound Studio sessions. The singers and musicians that Chips Moman assembled were able to blend country, soul, gospel, and pop into a unique and powerful sound. On Don't Cry Daddy, the female vocalists do more than just back Elvis up. They amplify the song's emotion, and in the final moments, their soulful cries are the sound that lingers long after the record has ended. Number 9, Can a Bass Singer Be? The Star of a Rock Song. The incredibly low, descending bum 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 vocal line at the end of each verse in Big Hunk of Love was sung by Ray Walker of the Jordanaires. His performance is so prominent and so unusual for a rock and roll song that it becomes one of the track's main instrumental hooks, even though it's a voice. Big Hunk of Love was recorded on June 10th, 1958 at RCA's Studio B in Nashville. It was a fast-driving rock and roll song, a return to the raucous energy of Elvis's earlier hits. The session was notable for the inclusion of pianist Floyd Kramer, whose pounding piano part gives the song much of its energy. Amidst the loud guitars, drums, and piano, the Jordanaires were tasked with finding a vocal part that could cut through the noise and add something unique to the track. They came up with a rhythmic, percussive vocal arrangement, but the star of their performance is undoubtedly Ray Walker. At the end of each verse, right after Elvis sings a line like, "You're a real sweet thing," the music briefly stops. In that moment of silence, Ray Walker's deep bass voice comes in, singing a descending 3-note phrase, bum bum bum. The final note is so low, it's almost a rumble. It's a brilliant piece of arranging. The vocal part acts like a punctuation mark, a full stop at the end of Elvis's sentence. It's also incredibly catchy. It's a hook that's as memorable as any guitar riff or piano lick, and it's completely unexpected. You don't expect to hear a formal, almost classical sounding bass vocal in the middle of a wild rock and roll song. The contrast is what makes it so effective. Walker's performance is a testament to his incredible vocal talent. To hit those low notes with such clarity and power right on cue in the middle of a loud rock band is no easy feat. His voice provides a moment of deep, resonant calm in the middle of a storm. This is a case where a backing vocalist creates an instrumental part with his voice. The bom 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 is not a harmony. It's not a lyric. It's a rhythmic and melodic hook that is central to the song's identity. The Jordanaires were often praised for their smooth blend, but on Big Hunk O' Love, they showed they could also be inventive and edgy. And Ray Walker, the man with the impossibly low voice, stole the show with just three simple, perfectly placed notes. Number 8, who provided the heavenly choir for A King's Prayer? The rich full choir sound on the 1960 gospel classic His Hand in Mine was created by just 4 singers, the Jordanaires. Through the use of overdubbing and expert harmony arranging, Gordon Stoker, Neil Matthews, Hoyt Hawkins, and Ray Walker created the sound of a much larger ensemble, providing a powerful and reverent backdrop for Elvis's sincere vocal. The album His Hand in Mine was Elvis's first full-length gospel album. It was a project he was deeply passionate about. He loved gospel music, and he wanted to create a record that was both authentic and powerful. The sessions took place over 2 nights in October 1960 at RCA's Studio B in Nashville. For the title track, Elvis wanted a sound that was grand and inspiring. He wanted it to sound like a full church choir. The problem was, he only had his 4-man vocal group, the Jordanaires. This is where their true artistry came into play. They were not just singers, they were masters of studio technique. Working with the engineer, they used a process called overdubbing. They would record one set of harmony parts, then rewind the tape and record another set on top of the first. They did this multiple times, with each member singing a different part on each pass. The result is a sound that is incredibly rich and complex. It sounds like there are 12 or 16 singers in the room, not just 4. They created a seamless wall of sound that perfectly complements Elvis's lead vocal. Listen to the song's introduction. The Jordanaires begin a cappella, their voices blended in perfect harmony. It immediately sets a reverent, spiritual tone. Then, when Elvis enters, they shift into a supportive role, their voices swelling and receding like a tide, adding emphasis to key phrases. Their performance is a masterclass in dynamic control. They know when to be soft and gentle, and they know when to unleash their full power. In the final chorus, their voices rise up behind Elvis, creating a massive, soaring sound that gives the song its emotional peak. The Jordanaires' work on His Hand in Mine is a perfect example of how skill and creativity can triumph over limitations. They didn't have a full choir, so they became one themselves. Their performance is not just background. It is the song's entire harmonic and atmospheric foundation. They created the cathedral of sound in which Elvis could deliver his prayer. Their voices are so integral to the recording that it's impossible to imagine it without them. They didn't just sing backup, they built the church. Number 7. How did a Christmas song become a joke? The high, comical, woo, woo, woo on Blue Christmas was sung by Millie Kirkham. The part was intended as a joke during a rehearsal take, but Elvis loved it so much that he insisted it be kept in the final recording. Kirkham herself was reportedly embarrassed by the part and thought it would ruin her career as a serious session singer. The session for Elvis's first Christmas album took place in September 1957 at Radio Recorders in Hollywood. Blue Christmas was a relatively obscure country song, and Elvis wanted to give it a unique arrangement. He was backed by his band and the Jordanaires. As they were working on the song, Elvis and the musicians were in a playful mood. During one of the takes, someone suggested adding a high, almost silly soprano part to contrast with the song's sad lyrics. Millie Kirkham, who had been brought in to supplement the Jordanaires' harmonies, was asked to try something. As a joke, she sang a ridiculously high, exaggerated woo 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 behind Elvis's lines. The other musicians started laughing. Elvis cracked up. He loved it. He thought it was the perfect touch of levity for the otherwise melancholic song. He told the producer, "Keep that in." Kirkham was horrified. She was a respected Nashville session singer, known for her beautiful, angelic soprano voice. She thought this silly cartoonish part would make her a laughingstock. She reportedly pleaded with Elvis to take it out, but he was insistent. The part stayed. Of course, the record became a massive hit and is now one of the most famous Christmas songs of all time. And the thing that makes it so instantly recognizable is Millie Kirkham's vocal. Her woo 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 is as iconic as Elvis's lead. It's a perfect example of a happy accident, a moment of spontaneous fun in the studio that becomes a key part of a classic recording. Kirkham's performance is brilliant because it's so unexpected. It adds a layer of irony to the song. While Elvis is singing about his sad, blue Christmas, her voice provides a playful counterpoint that suggests maybe things aren't so bad after all. Her fears of a ruined career were, of course, unfounded. She went on to have a long and successful career singing on countless hit records. But she would forever be known as the woman who sang the woo 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 on Blue Christmas. It's a moment she never intended to be serious, a part she thought was a throwaway joke. But it ended up being her most famous performance, a stolen moment that became the signature of a holiday classic. Number 6, who was the woman Elvis duetted with on stage? The high soprano voice that duetted with Elvis on many live performances of An American Trilogy in the 1970s belonged to Kathy Westmoreland. She was a classically trained soprano who joined Elvis's touring show in 1970. Her featured solo parts were a regular and dramatic highlight of his concerts. An American Trilogy was an arrangement by Mickey Newbury that combined 3 19th century songs: Dixie, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and All My Trials. After Elvis began performing it in 1972, and it quickly became the dramatic centerpiece of his show. The arrangement was designed to build from a quiet, soulful beginning to a massive orchestral and choral climax. Kathy Westmoreland's role in the performance was crucial. She was not just a backing singer, she was a featured soloist. Her moment came during the transition into the Battle Hymn of the Republic. After a flute solo, the stage would go quiet. Then Westmoreland's pure, clear soprano voice would ring out, singing a beautiful, high-pitched solo line. It was a moment of pure theatricality. The contrast between her delicate classical voice and the rock and roll energy of the rest of the show was stunning. She would hold a long, sustained, high note that would send shivers down the spine of the audience. It was the calm before the storm. Following her solo, the orchestra and choir would crash in, and Elvis would take over the lead vocal for the powerful final section of the song. But Westmoreland's contribution was not over. Throughout the final chorus, her voice can be heard soaring above everyone else, adding a layer of angelic beauty to the thunderous sound of the band and the male choir. Her relationship with Elvis on stage was one of mutual respect. He clearly admired her talent and gave her a prominent spot in the show every single night. He would often introduce her by name, something he didn't always do for his other backing musicians. Kathy Westmoreland's performance on An American Trilogy was more than just a backing vocal. It was a star turn. For a few brief moments every night, the spotlight was hers. She brought a touch of opera house elegance to the Las Vegas showroom. Her voice provided the emotional and spiritual liftoff that made the song one of the most powerful and unforgettable moments in Elvis's live career. She was the angel on his shoulder, and her voice was the sound of glory. Number 5, what made that ending so unforgettable? The powerful, soulful female backing vocals on the extended outro of Suspicious Minds, which are crucial to the song's epic feel, were arranged and led by Jeannie Green. Her arrangement and the performance of the other singers, Mary Holiday, Donna Thatcher, and Ginger Holiday, turned a standard fade out into one of the most iconic codas in pop music history. The famous fade out and fade in was a deliberate production choice by Chips Moman, not a mistake. Let's break down that legendary ending. The song was recorded at American Sound Studio in January 1969. After Elvis and the band laid down a near-perfect take, producer Chips Moman felt the song needed a bigger finish. He didn't want it to just end, he wanted it to build into a frenzy. He decided on a false fade. He would fade the track out, making the listener think the song was over, and then bring it roaring back for a final, extended jam. This was a technique sometimes used in soul music to mimic the energy of a live performance where a band might bring a song back for one more chorus. For this to work, the final section needed to be explosive. This is where Jeannie Green and the other female vocalists came in. Green, a seasoned session singer and arranger, worked out the powerful call and response parts that would define the outro. After the fade in, the song's energy completely shifts. It becomes a vocal duel between Elvis and the women. They are not just singing harmonies, they are singing with him, against him, around him. Their voices are strong, passionate, and full of gospel fire. They chant with Suspicious Minds and add soulful ad-libs, pushing Elvis to sing with even more passion. The arrangement is brilliant. The voices are layered on top of each other, creating a dense, powerful wall of sound. The rhythm is relentless. It's a vocal performance that refuses to quit. It just keeps building and building in intensity until the final, abrupt end. This ending is what transformed Suspicious Minds from a great song into an immortal anthem. It became the blueprint for the grand, theatrical closers of his live shows. The contribution of the backing vocalists is not just important, it is fundamental. They provide the raw, soulful power that drives the entire final third of the record. And Jeannie Green's arrangement and the passionate performance of all the singers created a moment of pure studio magic. They took a producer's clever idea and infused it with human emotion and soul. They weren't in the background, they were the engine of the song's unforgettable conclusion. Number 4, who sang the high note in Surrender. The dramatic, operatic high note at the end of Surrender was not sung by a regular member of the Jordanaires. It was sung by an associate professor of music at a local college, a man named Meyer Rubin. He was brought in specifically for that one note because no one else, including Elvis, could hit it with the required operatic power. Surrender was recorded on October 30th, 1960, like It's Now or Never. It was based on a European song that Elvis had heard while in the army. This one was based on a Neapolitan ballad called Torna a Sorrento. Elvis wanted the recording to have an authentic, dramatic, and operatic feel. The session went well, and the Jordanaires provided their usual flawless harmonies. However, when it came to the song's grand finale, they hit a snag. The arrangement called for a very high, powerful tenor note to be held over the final chord. Elvis tried it. Gordon Stoker, the high tenor of the Jordanaires, tried it. They could hit the note, but they couldn't give it the full-throated, operatic quality that the song demanded. The producer, Steve Scholes, was in a bind. The track was perfect, except for this one missing element. Someone in the studio suggested calling a local vocal coach who might know a singer with the right kind of voice. The call was made, and Meyer Rubin, who taught at a nearby college, was summoned to the studio. Rubin was not a rock and roll singer. He was a classically trained vocalist. He came into the studio, listened to the track, and was shown the part he needed to sing. Story goes that he warmed up, stepped to the microphone, and nailed the high note in one take. Listen to the very end of the song. As the music swells for the final time, you hear this incredible soaring tenor voice come in and hold a powerful high B flat. It's a pure classical sound that you would expect to hear at the Metropolitan Opera, not on a pop record. It provides the perfect dramatic conclusion to the song. Meyer Rubin's contribution lasted for only a few seconds. He was paid a standard session fee, and he left. He is not credited on the record. But his single, perfect note is one of the most memorable moments in Elvis's entire discography. It's a case of a complete outsider, a specialist, being brought in to solve a unique musical problem. He was the secret weapon that turned a great recording into a spectacular one. It's the ultimate stolen moment, performed by a man whose name most fans have never heard. Number 3, could a mistake become the most famous part of a song? The moment in the live longing version of Are You Lonesome Tonight, where Elvis breaks into uncontrollable laughter, was directly caused by a mistake from his backing singer, Cissy Houston. On the night of August 26, 1969, during the spoken word bridge, Houston accidentally sang a prominent lead melody line instead of her usual soft harmony, which took Elvis completely by surprise and triggered his famous fit of laughter. Let's set the scene again. International Hotel, Las Vegas. Elvis is in the middle of his dramatic spoken word performance. It's a quiet, intimate moment. The audience is silent. The backing vocalists, the sweet inspirations, are supposed to be providing a gentle, atmospheric vocal pad. Cissy Houston, their leader and a vocal powerhouse, had a momentary lapse in concentration. Instead of blending in, she sang out loud and clear a melody line that wasn't her part. You can hear it distinctly on the recording. It's a beautiful note, but it's in the wrong place. The unexpected sound jolted Elvis. He was so focused on his dramatic recitation that this sudden, incorrect vocal line struck him as hilarious. He tries to suppress a laugh, but he can't. A small chuckle escapes, then another. The backing singers realize what has happened, and they too start to struggle to keep straight faces. For Elvis, this was the first domino to fall. The second was a man in the audience who, at that exact moment, took off his toupee. The combination of the musical mistake and the visual gag was too much. Elvis completely lost it. He descends into a full-blown laughing fit, barely able to get his lines out. Cissy Houston's role in this is pivotal. Her mistake is the catalyst for the whole event. What's remarkable is her professionalism. After her initial error, she and the Sweet Inspirations try to carry on. You can hear them singing their parts, their voices wavering with suppressed laughter as Elvis is falling apart on stage. Cissy's powerful voice is still there, trying to hold the song together. This recording, which was eventually released and became a hit, is a precious document. It captures a moment of pure, unscripted humanity. It shows that even the most professional performers can make mistakes, and that sometimes those mistakes can create something wonderful. Cissy Houston's wrong note didn't ruin the song. It made it legendary. It provided the spark that, ignited one of the most famous and beloved bootlegs in music history. It's a moment where a backing singer, through a simple error, completely changed the course of a performance and stole the show in the most unexpected way possible. Number 2, who was the angel on Elvis's shoulder? The ethereal, wordless soprano that floats through many of Elvis's 1960s studio recordings, most notably on tracks like Can't Help Falling in Love, was Millie Kirkham. Her unique vocal texture became a key ingredient in the Nashville sound that defined much of Elvis's work during this period. Her voice was not just a harmony, it was an atmospheric instrument. After Elvis returned from the army, his music began to change. The raw rock and roll of the 50s was often replaced by more polished, sophisticated pop ballads and movie soundtrack songs. Much of this music was recorded in Nashville, under the guidance of producers like Chet Atkins and Felton Jarvis. They were crafting a new sound, the Nashville sound, which blended pop and country with lush strings and smooth backing vocals. Millie Kirkham was a central figure in this scene. Her ability to sing high, pure, and almost white-sounding soprano notes made her an invaluable asset. Producers used her voice not as a traditional backing vocal, but as an orchestral texture like a flute or a violin. Listen to Can't Help Falling in Love. The Jordanaires provide the main rich harmonies, but floating above them all is Millie Kirkham's voice. She sings a simple, sustained who line. It's a sound that is both human and otherworldly. It adds a layer of romantic, almost heavenly, beauty to the track. It's the sound of starlight, the sound of a dream. She performed a similar role on dozens of other Elvis tracks from this era. On a song like His Latest Flame, she provides the high, soaring counterpoint to the song's Latin rhythm. On ballads, her voice would add a touch of vulnerability and grace. What makes her contributions so special is their subtlety. Her voice is often mixed in a way that makes it feel like it's part of the air, part of the atmosphere of the recording. You might not even consciously notice it at first, but if you were to take it away, the song would feel empty, less magical. Her performance is the opposite of a showy, scene-stealing moment. It's a quiet, pervasive presence. She didn't sing lyrics, she sang emotion. She was the secret ingredient that gave so many of Elvis's ballads their timeless romantic quality. Millie Kirkham was the angel on Elvis's shoulder, the ghostly voice that turned his love songs into secular hymns. Her soft oohs and ahs stole the emotional core of more records than can be counted. Number 1, how did Four Voices become a national sound? The Jordanaires, as a collective unit, stole the show on countless Elvis Presley tracks throughout the 1950s and 60s. Their signature perfectly blended harmonies became so integral to Elvis's sound that it is impossible to imagine his classic hits without them. Their vocal arrangements on songs like Don't Be Cruel and All Shook Up are not just background, they are a fundamental part of the song's melodic and rhythmic structure. The Jordanaires first worked with Elvis in January 1956. From that point on, they became his primary studio and live vocal group for over a decade. The group consisted of Gordon Stoker, tenor and manager, Neil Matthews, second tenor, and vocal arranger, Hoyt Hawkins, baritone, and Ray Walker, bass. Their genius was in their blend. 4 distinct voices that could merge into one seamless sound. Neil Matthews was the primary arranger, and he had a gift for creating vocal parts that were both complex and incredibly catchy. They didn't just sing who's and ahs, they sang counter melodies, rhythmic phrases, and harmonic pads that were as important as any instrument in the band. Take Don't Be Cruel. The Jordanaires' bump, ba vocals are a primary rhythmic driver of the song. They are a hook, a piece of percussion, and a harmony all at once. Elvis sings the lead, but the Jordanaires are answering him, pushing him, and creating the entire feel of the track alongside him. Or consider Al Shook Up. Their tight, staccato backing vocals mimic the nervous energy of the lyrics. They are the sound of the shivers and shakes that Elvis is singing about. Their performance is so locked in with Elvis's that it feels like they are all part of one single super-powered voice. They were incredibly versatile. One day they would be providing the smooth barbershop-style harmonies for a ballad like Love Me Tender. The next, they would be a shouting, rocking choir on Jailhouse Rock. Then they would transform into a reverent gospel quartet for an album like How Great Thou Art. Their contribution to Elvis's legacy cannot be overstated. They helped to define his sound during his most iconic period. They were not just a backing group, they were his musical partners. They created a vocal blueprint that would be copied by countless artists for decades to come. The Jordanaires stole the show not with a single note or a single performance, but through a decade of consistent, brilliant, and innovative work. They created a sound that was so perfectly matched to Elvis's voice that the two became inseparable. Their harmonies are woven into the very fabric of popular music. They are the quiet kings behind the king.